Start your systems. This is the Outside Gate with Steve Hall on the L4 Media Network, where we talk US moto and anywhere the conversation goes. And today, returning to the Outside Gate. So this will be his second time on the show from Start Your Systems. It is my friend Kellen Brauer. How are you, man?
I'm doing well. It's great to be back on the show. I appreciate that you invited me back to grace you again and chat a little bit of moto today.
No worries, man. No, it is it's cool, man. I think you're the second time guest on the show.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah. You were good enough to come on the show very early in the piece. I can't remember what episode but you were probably somewhere around 10 episodes in, if I was guessing, and you at your position in the media to come on my show that early on was something I'm very grateful for. So and dude, so you want to just tell us a little bit about what you're up to now? You're sort of doing your own thing and that sort of thing. So yeah, just last time we spoke, you were still Racer X. So it's we're getting on towards nearly a year ago. So yeah.
Yeah, jumped around a little bit. Obviously for people who kind of know my story, I jumped over to motoonline.com and was kind of heading up their US operation there for a little bit. But I'm not really there full time anymore. I'm actually still doing a little bit of work with Alex and everyone over there, but they just had a different direction, I guess, that they were kind of going with it. And we chose to part ways, but it's still kind of ongoing. Like I said, doing a little bit of contract work with them, and because of that, I'm kind of doing my own thing, a little bit of freelance work. Obviously, still with Start Your Systems, kind of growing that brand, doing a little bit of like a subset moto website out of it as well. Um, Working with Steve Mathis and Pulpamex doing the LVK podcast. I'm doing a little bit of work with Chris Kiefer, shooting some of his YouTube videos and stuff. So I'm kind of all over the place. I'm doing a lot of different stuff right now and seeing where we kind of land going into 2025.
Awesome, man. Yeah, no, you'll land very much on your feet. I'm sure of that. Like all these things you're doing is really cool, man. I think I know LVK was a pretty new show last time we spoke, and I was
Yeah.
already a big fan of it, man. And it is one that I never miss. I know that I was just talking yesterday actually about talking to my daughter about the show and things I want to do in the future and that sort of thing. And I was saying, at some stage a co-host would be really cool, but it's got to be the right person, because you got to have the chemistry. And
Yeah.
you and Lewis definitely have the chemistry, man. It's it works a treat. It really does. It was a really good idea to put you two together, and it's cool, man. Really cool.
Yeah, that was all just the brainchild of Steve listening to us banter and bicker in the press box over the years, and I think he just was like, I think these guys will be funny together. And obviously, we do pulp and stuff with Steve before that, but
Hmm.
he kind of called us out of the blue in the off season and was like, "What if you guys did a pod together?" And we kind of backed you on that, and pulled some strings and put it together, and it's been a ton of fun. I mean, Lewis is a little out there with his takes, I'll say sometimes, but we try to bounce some good ideas off of each other, and I think we get a pretty good show out of it.
You do, man. Yeah. Yeah, I like Lewis. I can totally understand that Lewis is he's a polarizing figure. Like
Yeah.
not a lot of people on the fence with Lewis. They like him or they don't. But that's cool. I think it's cool, and I think one thing definitely Australians definitely get British humor. And I think maybe a lot of the I guess some of the US fans might struggle with the British humor a little bit, like a lot of sarcasm and a lot of that, like because like growing up, we would basically have a mixture of our own pretty terrible television shows and then British and American shows. We would have a lot of like especially one of our TV channels was nearly all British TV. So, British comedians, all that sort of thing, and even British kids shows. And then the other channel would have like Sesame Street and American kids shows. And,
Yeah.
so we really had a lot of both. and there's so British comedy, and I think a lot of the Australians, a lot of our comedy and our slang and that it's come from. That's basically, yeah, like it's literally come from the Poms, as we call them. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, that's it. So like I've had a lot of different colleagues and that English colleagues and that over the years and that sort of thing, and straight away there's just banter. There's Aussie versus English, like it's a fun thing. A similar sense of humor, so we always get along well. It's like we we have to beat them in everything, as far as sports and all that sort of thing. Like, I guess you guys have that a little bit with Canada or something, maybe. I don't know, but like anything to do with sports, we got to beat the Poms. Like that's that's the thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's a fun thing, man. Yeah, cool.
Yeah,
Enough.
I think the US is like that with every country, to be fair. We
Oh
just
yeah,
gotta beat everybody,
yes,
Canada and Mexico being close to us, sure, but
yeah.
everybody is our enemy, it seems like, when it comes to sports.
Yeah, yeah, true. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, because yeah, that global dominance. Yeah, so it's you got to be like even like just the Olympics. It's like because our population's so much smaller than the British, but we always smash them at the Olympics and all that sort of thing. It's like most of the time in my lifetime we've beaten them at cricket. And that's the big one. It's like
Mhm.
that's the big one. We beat them at that and that sort of thing. That's always a big deal. So yeah, cool, man, cool. All right, enough about the British. Let's talk a little bit about. I thought we'd just get into a little bit about SMX, just some key stuff. Like, interested in your take on how is Chase's mindset? That's the one thing that I've really think about still from the weekend. How is Chase's mindset? What's your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think he was really upset that he comes off of winning the outdoors and looking as good as he did for the last 6 races of the year, and I think he thought, "I'm the guy. We've got this figured out. The bike's in a good spot." And we saw this a lot with Chase in Supercross, where he'd have a good round or two, and then come to a track that, whether it was the soil was too soft or maybe it was too hard or something just enough off that the bike setup wasn't there, and he would really struggle with that, like, kinda couldn't get over the mental hurdle of being a few clickers off or something like that. So after Charlotte, he just was livid that he was back into a position again where he felt uncomfortable with the bike. I don't think that he was that far off necessarily, but I think in his own mind, coming in as the guy, red plate holder, having kind of beaten them outdoors pretty well, I don't think he wanted to give Jet, Eli, anybody momentum. I think he wanted
Yeah,
to keep the ball rolling. He won Charlotte last year, so he knew exactly what to expect out of that racetrack and what he probably wanted it to feel like. And I know he made a couple adjustments kind of throughout the day and was kind of chasing his tail with setup throughout the day as well, and never really found some semblance of comfort in the zone that he was really hoping to have. So even like right after the race, I just have this image in my mind. I was standing there trying to interview Julian Beaumer, and I look over and Chase comes up, and I mean it was like daggers looking across the room at people that were getting ready to interview him as he was going up for the press conference. He was not happy, and it was all over his face. And this was maybe 10 minutes after he came off the track. So I think he is going to go back this week and do a lot of just kind of mental resetting, because I think that's the biggest problem with him is he kind of falls in those little holes of everything's wrong and nothing can go right, and he's got to pick himself up by the bootstraps really quickly to go racing again this next weekend. Because I don't think he was that far off, and I think he could easily rebound and win again this weekend in Texas.
it'd be great if he does. Imagine that. That's awesome. If he bounces back, like that's what we want to see as fans. Unless you're a massive Jet homer or a massive Eli homer, like you want to see Chase win this weekend. Like that'd be just cool. It's good for the series and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah,
feel like for the most part, as even if you are a big Jet fan, you're kind of like, I hope he doesn't win right away. Like you don't want him to come off injury and be that good again immediately. But he was so good. It's impressive what that kid can do with limited training, limited testing on that new 25 Honda. And the fact that he got better 15 minutes into the moto is unreal. Which
Mm,
is, I think, probably why Chase, even Eli, were that annoyed that he was that good that fast, because they're like, we're supposed to have this experience. We're supposed to be able to handle these situations coming back from an injury like that. And he worked him more or
mm.
less in that second half of that second moto. So a lot of mental resetting based on 10 minutes of racing after that second moto for sure.
Yeah, and even like that track last year was like Jet's worst weekend of the year.
Hmm.
Like he sucked at that track last year. So new bike off injury, he sucked there last year. All this, and then he still comes out like it's just like, oh yeah, the rest of them, yeah,
Yeah.
they'd be just
I mean,
shaking
he's
their head. Yeah.
incredible. It's
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 amazing.
it's just a freak. Yeah, just an absolute freak. But yeah, like yeah, I agree. I agree with what you're saying about Chase. You know, like I wrote an article about it, and I can't remember exactly what I said, but it was basically that, you know, like it had to go better for him, and that he would be just kicking himself, you know, absolutely kicking himself this week. You know, even though, you know, it was a podium, it's not bad, but it had to be better given the circumstances. It had to be better for him. Yeah, he had to do better than that.
Yeah, I mean, what stood out to me about it too was being there in person. Like, when I saw him after the race, I knew he'd be upset based on the result, and I felt like it was a more distant third there in person than it looked on TV, which was kind of weird to me. Like, he was obviously right there with the two leaders kind of all the way through, but um in my own opinion, I thought, oh, he got worked. And then you watch it back and you're like, oh, actually, he really didn't. So maybe he shouldn't be that dejected about it. Obviously, he wants to win, but to be as close as he was, it's not the worst thing in the world, especially on a track like that, there wasn't a whole lot of separation. It was pretty difficult to pass regardless. And especially if they're all going the same speed, what are you going to do? So I don't think that he should be that upset about it, but it is Chase Sexton. He tends to
Yeah,
kind of fall in that hole a little bit too often.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a tough one, man. Like I've had, you know, sometimes people say, "Oh, is he mentally weak?" And that, like, I think he's mentally strong to be able to, like, he's got that Chad Reed about him, where it's just like, yeah, remember this? So how Chad's the guy who's just been worked by alien riders more than anyone in history, but
Hmm.
he still came to every race. I am absolutely the best guy here. I am going to win. You know, week
Yeah.
after week for years with Ricky and with Stu and like, and I think Chad, yeah. So there's a bit of similarity in that mindset. Like, just, you know, I'm the best.
Hmm.
That's what Chase has got about him, and it's good, man. But yeah, I hope he rebounds big time this week. It'd be great if he does. Yeah,
Yeah.
cool, cool. And then the obviously the highlight, the key thing that everybody's taken out of the 250 class, man, is Deegs. Like, wow, that was just an ass whipping. Like,
Yeah.
you know, an absolute. He just gave everyone a flogging. You know, like Juju had a great race. Pump for that kid. I think he's had a bit of an underrated season. I think Juju, because it's a lot of people sort of are forgetting his story just from like a year ago. Like, wow, you know, like it's
Yeah.
he was a privateer Yamaha in futures like just over a year ago to, you know, a podium for factory KTM. Like, he's done well, so good for Juju. But the big story though, man, yeah, Deegs just by far the class of the field.
Yeah, I mean, watching that first moto unfold, I'm like, okay, he's back there. It's a tough track to pass on, and everyone's pretty close in speed. Like, if he can get on the podium, this will be really good for him. And then by the time he got in second, I'm like, I don't know what's even happened, because it just happened so fast how he was clicking guys off and making those passes and finding places to pass that really all day many guys couldn't find ways around, like going around the outside in certain corners to just square him off. And he used the sand really well, I thought, which a lot of the 250 guys kind of struggled with to kind of find a good line. But Deegs, yeah, he was really good, kind of getting in, pointing, shooting, getting out of there really well. And even after he got into second, I'm like, that's a long ways to catch Julian. And within like 3 laps, he was in the lead. It
Mm,
was unbelievable just how quick he was about snapping onto someone and making a pass, and like he's kind of the. It reminded me a little bit of James and Ricky, because they would back in the day, like when they would pass people, the guys would almost not even know they're there until they're by. And so
Yeah.
if you're Juju, you're thinking like, I got the lead. This is cool. Okay, here comes Hayden. And he didn't even really have time to think about a
No,
defense. Like, how am I going to block? What corners should I,
no.
hug the inside? Deegan was already by him by the time he could even think about that stuff, which is, a really big key to have in your back pocket if you're in that class, because you don't want to let these guys have a couple corners where they feel like they have you. If you can snap by them quickly, it certainly demoralizes them pretty quick.
Yeah, yeah. Something that I've been thinking about, and I'm going to ask. It's going to be a question going forward. So you'd be the first one I've asked is if you were in the corner of one of his rivals, Levi, Juju, Chance. What are you telling him? What's your advice for him? What are you telling him to work on? That's a tough one, man.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know. I mean, I think I would kind of just, to all of them say, look, at the end of the day, you only lost 5 points, 7 points. Next week he could be vulnerable again. And that's all you can really say and hope for, because he hasn't really had many flaws this year, but he is still young and he is still riding the ragged edge quite often, which means that at any point this could go really bad. So if
Mm,
you're in their corner, you just say like, today you weren't the best, but the next time out you might be the guy that gets the start, gets away, and while he's trying to, catch you and ride through the field like he just did in that 2 races in Charlotte, he might, roll up the windows somewhere or something like that as well. So if
mm,
you can keep putting yourself in a good position, getting off the gate well, you're going to put the pressure on him to have to ride like that every time, and he will not be able to ride like that every time.
yeah.
So I think I would just tell them, keep doing what you're doing, because at some point it's just not going to work that exact way every single time for him.
Yeah, I guess you can, you can sort of look back at like all those times where Stu was the fastest guy, like that, just like so much
Yeah.
faster than everyone else. But it'd bite him and he'd hit the ground, So and others were there to take advantage of that. So yeah, no, that's good. I like that, man. That's a good answer. Yeah, because I've been just thinking like. I don't know what I'd say. I don't know what I'd say. It's like, like, because you're just thinking, like, you guys are fucked. Like, what is this? Look at this guy. It was crazy, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I was at. Do you like the salty podium interviews? Do you like the salty stuff, or do you hate it?
It doesn't really bother me as much as others. The thing I don't love about it is that sometimes you can tell it's like an act or forced a little bit. And as much as I want him to be real and honest about his opinions, I just don't want him to be like unrealistically stupid, I guess, with it. And you can tell that sometimes he's literally just poking the bear to poke the bear, or just
Yeah,
saying something stupid, to get inside of their heads. And I don't feel like that's really him. I've only talked to him a handful of times, like not on the record, just kind of personal conversations. And he's a super laid back kid. And by all, accounts, everybody that does know him off the record says like that's not what he's about. He's much more respectful and nice to people around him, and says, please and thank you, and doesn't try to shove it in your face that he's Hayden Deegan and that kind of thing. So I just don't feel like it's truly him every single time, but at the end of the day, I think there is a little bit of that inside of him regardless. And I think sometimes it's good of him to just show that so that people know if you mess with him, like that's what he's going to be doing to you. So, and like he always says, he backs it up. Like if he was saying that stuff and getting worked every week and
yeah,
finishing fifth, it would look way worse. And
yeah,
he's been, I feel like, pretty even across the board with when he has had bad motos or has gotten straight up beat. He will give them credit. Like even this weekend, he said Julian rode great. It was awesome to see him up there, even though he beat him both times. So I think it's a catch-22. Like, of course, people are going to be upset that he always says something, but he should say stuff because he's the best rider in that class right now. So he can talk the talk if he walks the walk.
yeah. I got to admit, it pains me a little bit to admit it, but I like it. I like when he
Yeah.
does. I like when he does the salty stuff, because I'm like in day-to-day life, and even as a sports fan, I'm not really into drama. I don't really like the drama and that sort of thing. But the what I do like though is when he does stuff like that, it's the fun afterwards. I think that's why I like it. The fun afterwards, the takes from people in the media and the takes from my friends, and the fun that it is afterwards. Like, did you hear what he said? Like, how about this? Like, it creates fun
Yeah,
and that sort of thing. Creates fun takes, and it's a funny thing. And I also feel like, I think a lot of the time he's just, I think all the time he's just poking the bear. It's
yeah.
not super serious, but he says these things, and even sometimes when he says things that are like really cringy, it's like, oh man, did you really say that? It makes me laugh. So I don't mind it at all. I reckon it's funny. It's a funny thing. Yeah,
It
absolutely.
is. And honestly, like, what he can say whatever he wants. It's not here nor there for me to say that he should or shouldn't. But I am with JT on the opinion that he's going to say it to the wrong person at some point, and it may not be in the 250 class.
Yeah.
I know that like RJ wants to take some swings at him or whatever, but I don't know that that's ever really going to come to blows. But if Justin Barcia and Jason Anderson are still in the
Yes.
450 class when
Oh
he
yeah.
gets there, and he says, "Oh, I don't give a crap who he is. I'm gonna, push his front
Yeah.
tire over the berm or something." He's gonna have, one of their front tires in his femur the next week for sure. So,
Yeah.
I think he's smart enough to be careful about stuff like that and
Yeah.
know who to pick his battles with. But it just takes one wrong comment
One
to the
wrong
wrong
thing. Yeah.
person for it to go really bad.
That's it. Like he's very smart, man. He is
Yeah.
very smart. Even though he says some dumb things, he's very smart, kid. That's a very, very smart family. And but yeah, I'm just so I'm already excited of the prospect of when he gets to line up against Bam Bam and Ando. Like that's just fantastic, man. I'm
Yeah.
gonna be on the edge of my seat. Like it's like, wow, what's gonna happen?
Uh,
And probably nothing, but oh man, like it'll be really a case of like right now, he's a boy beating up other boys, and he's going to go into the men's class, and it's all different.
mhm.
We saw a little bit of it with Jet and Jason earlier in the year, and that sort of thing. Like those, that you're not just poking. You're poking big grizzly bears, not just bears.
Mhm.
Once you get into that 450 class, so yeah,
Yeah.
it'll be fun, man. It'll be fun. That's it. Dude, what's your biggest surprises of the season? So like a good one and a bad one.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's a couple different ones. Like, to be honest, I didn't expect Chance Hymas to be as good outdoors as he was, and it's like been a really pleasant surprise to see him kind of come into his own, even battling the kind of torn ACL issues that he's had and stuff like that. So it was neat to see that he's turned it around as well as he did. Um, I think I was probably a bit surprised that Deegan was that dominant in his second year. I think I expected maybe a little bit more out of Vial and Kitchen and all that, which makes them kind of my disappointments. Like, as good as Vial had been at times, for him to not be closer to Deegan throughout the whole of outdoors was actually a pretty big disappointment to me, just because I figured, it's weird that Vial wins Supercross and then Deegan wins outdoors, and it wasn't even close. I figured Vial would be much closer to that. Um, I don't know that I have like a ton of like really big disappointments. Like, I'm just kind of bummed, I guess. I don't know if I feel like disappointed about it, but I'm bummed that there's a handful of guys that I really like that have spent the entire year on the sidelines. Like we saw Faulkner early in the year and
Mm.
just had that big crash. Max Volan, we haven't seen him since early January. Like, it's not a disappointment that they got hurt. It's just a bummer that they couldn't really show what they were made of, because I think that both of them were slated to have really good seasons. So, um, if I had to just go like on, strictly results wise disappointments, honestly, like it was kind of like Malcolm and Barsha in Supercross. And I feel like they both started to turn it around towards the end a little bit. So that was good. And I felt really disappointed about Christian Craig the first two rounds of outdoors, but he also again
Mm.
started to turn it around a little
Yeah.
bit. So that was a pleasant surprise. And then I think, and he lost the ride because of it, but really Shane McElrath not having a better year on that Suzuki has been a pretty big disappointment as well, because
Mm.
he had talked in the preseason to us about finally having a little bit of stability, coming back to that team again, something that he was familiar with. and it never seemed like he was ever comfortable, which was
mm,
weird for someone who was so high on like the being back at the same place, same mechanics, same team, all this stuff like that, that he never gelled with it. So that's probably the biggest disappointment, but kind of makes sense because he also lost his ride. So
mm.
kind of ties in together.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Cool. There's some interesting ones there that I hadn't thought of. Yeah, yeah. My biggest surprise or disappointment, the negative one is Tom. I thought Tom would be just wicked outdoors. I
Yeah.
picked him for champion. I thought he'd beat Deegs for the championship. Beat Deegs and Levi and that sort of thing. And it just yeah, Tom seemed to struggle. He seems to struggle passing people. That seems to be the thing.
Yeah.
Maybe he was so good. I didn't. I'm pretty new to MXGP. Oh man, I used to look at the results, but as far as watching it, I'm new. I only first time I've paid up to watch it was this year. So a mate talked me into it. So I've been helping him out with some media about it. And so I never really watched Tom race. I just would see the results, but I don't know if he was getting a lot of leading from the front in Europe or what. But yeah, if he doesn't get a good start, he doesn't move forward.
Hmm.
That's sort of the thing with Tom. So yeah, that was disappointing. And then as far as good surprises, like there's not heaps. Like I didn't think same, like but no one probably thought Hayden was going to be as good as he is. Apart from him and his family, probably.
And his
Um,
YouTube Legion.
yeah, yeah, and Hunter probably surprised me with his outdoor season, as far as a good one. Like I expected him to be more. Um, really in the battle with Jason Anderson, that sort of, you know. But he was like, very very clearly a step up on on that group. Yeah,
Hmm.
that sort of he was sort of right there. Yeah, clearly the third slash second, depending on where his brother was around, guy there. So yeah, I think because I was actually, it's interesting the Justin Cooper and Hunter's seasons. Like Justin started out the so much like as the one who was having the better year in Supercross and that sort of thing, and then it gradually turned to where they're pretty even, and then outdoors yeah, Hunter was better. I expected probably Justin to have a better outdoors, so that and I think Justin, he's still had a great 450 year, like
Hmm.
fantastic, really
Yeah.
fantastic year. It's just that others around him are doing it better and being a lot louder about it. Poor old Jay Coop, he's always going to suffer from me being such a quiet guy, isn't he? So yeah, yeah,
Yeah, those are good ones for sure. Yeah, I think like in my own mind, I'd probably put Hunter and Jay Coop more in that mix. So that's why they weren't so much of a surprise to me. Definitely Hunter lasting as long as he did in the championship fight was a bit of a surprise. But them being 250 championship last year outdoors, I figured they would slot into, like you said, that Anderson position or maybe even better. Cause I don't know. I've never really looked at Anderson as an outdoor guy. And I would
no,
definitely say both Hunter and Jay Coop are. So
yeah,
I figure if you put them on a 450 against those guys, they should be in the mix, but definitely did a little better than I expected. Both of them.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Now, Bobby Reagan's going to need an extra truck next year, is he, or what's going on? That's like,
Yeah.
you
Four
might be more
450s,
like
seven
four
250s,
four
I
four
think.
fifties. What is going on? Like,
Yeah.
I made a joke that he's just sold one of his islands, so he's right now. You know, yeah,
Yeah, probably.
yeah, man. Like, it's crazy that guy. You don't know what's going to go. There's no, like the power sports industry is supposed to be struggling a little bit.
I
Right?
know.
Not when it comes to Star Yamaha. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely, man.
yeah, that Christian Craig news definitely, like, kinda caught all of us off guard over here a little bit,
Yeah,
because it was such a late thing that came together. Like, he had definitely been talking to Hep, like, that was probably going to happen. He
mm,
was definitely gonna test the bike, and then it just seemed like in a flip of a light switch, "Oh, yeah, he's gonna be on a star bike next year, no problem." So, very weird how that all worked out.
It'd be interesting to see. Obviously, I think everything with Christian hinges on that damn elbow.
Yeah.
But man, like he's done very well on Yamahas in the past.
Hmm.
So and for that team and all that. So like it.
I think we're gonna see his whoop speed come back. That'll
Mm,
be the one thing that'll turn around for sure.
yeah, yeah. So that it'll be interesting. Hopefully it goes well for him because I was actually just about thinking halfway through the year, I was thinking like it's probably it. You know,
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
probably it. He's probably done. So he's been given a big chance, isn't he? A big
Hmm.
chance at redemption. So just got to get that get that elbow right. That's
Yeah.
I haven't seen it close up, but I've had people describe it to me what it looks like, and
Pretty scrawny.
yeah, like no muscles except for this big and then this big sort of a lump of an elbow, like crazy,
Yep.
crazy, dude. Might just talk a little bit about the new brands in this year, Triumph and Beta, better, depending on where you are in the world.
Well, what do
Um,
you say? Do you say beta?
I say Beta,
Beta.
yeah,
Okay.
just say Beta. Yeah, I'm not sure if that's what all Aussies say, but that's just Beta.
Well,
Yeah,
maybe us Americans are wrong then, because we all say beta, but
mm,
maybe beta is the way to go.
yeah. I don't know. I have no idea who's right and wrong or whatever, but just something I was thinking about with the two brands. Like Beta reminds me a little bit how they've come into Moto. It reminds me a little bit of when KTM was coming back in with
Mhm.
Roger because they were very much like when they came back in with Roger, KTM was very much an off-road powerhouse with terrific off-road bikes.
Right.
And they sort of basically started, getting stronger into motocross. And remember at one stage they were running the off-road designed motor in the motocross frame and all this sort of, they were sort of working towards and developing from an off-road model,
Yep.
which is sort of what Beta's doing. Whereas Triumph has just like clean slate, just totally clean slate. We're going to do this, and this. Just we're going to just use the best stuff that works for everyone else, and just
Yeah.
assemble the best people, the best parts, and we're just going to build the best right from the get go. So it's two very different approaches, and I think Triumph's approach has worked fantastically. They've had their issues, but like I had Scuba on a while back, and I said to him like, you know, I think you've had a fantastic first year,
Hmm.
and I hope you do too. Because it despite a few mechanicals and that, like you pretty much expect that, or I did, but the results and the all the what bike test, guys like Kiefer, you respect their opinion, what they say about the bike, that sort of thing. It's testing really well. It's fast. Jalik's done fantastic on it.
Hmm.
That sort of thing. Joey seems to have had a black cloud following this year. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, thoughts on Triumph and Beta?
I mean, I think both of them really have done a very amicable job of getting their brands into a position where they can succeed moving forward. Because I think that, aesthetically, you look at Triumph obviously loses Joey at the end of the year. Evan Ferry goes off, and they have a lot of bikes get pushed off the track this year, unfortunately. And then Beta, Benny crashed because of a mechanical issue, and that ended his season. And then, the fractured relationship with Colt Nichols, there's reasons to say that it didn't work for either, but I would definitely argue that both had very successful foundation seasons for building towards the future because I mean, the end of the day, this isn't easy. This isn't easy to go racing at the highest level and for them to have the results that they were able to put out on the track. I mean, Jalik getting a podium obviously is massive for Triumph, but Beta even was early in Supercross having so many issues and they were just kind of like hiding and they were just, working their butts off back at the test track trying to figure out all of these issues, And then by mid-season, Benny was a top 10 guy. Like they really figured out how to dial that bike in on Supercross, which they'd never even touched in their life until the beginning of this year. So, you know, did everything go right? No, but it probably shouldn't have anyway,
Mm,
because this is not something that you can just expect to land on your feet running with 100% success rate. So the fact that they went through these, you know, turmoil, tribulations, all that stuff like that to kind of learn the processes of how to get better in the future, they're going to have so much knowledge base on, well, if this part fails, we got to go back and, re-weld this thing back together and come up with a new, you know, sprocket or model or something like that to fix everything going forward, that they won't have that issue in the future. And so now they can roll in and just say, all right, all that stuff that we had last year, it shouldn't happen to us again. We've figured out how to make solutions for that. And now we can roll into 2025 with a step up in our platform, which, to be honest, isn't even that bad of a base setting that they already had, because they were getting top tens if you're beta and podiums if you're triumph. That's not terrible at all.
mm. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I might be being a little bit hard on Beta, thinking that Triumphs had so much better, because Benny was solid. He was
Yeah.
solid. I'm probably still I think about I expected so much out of Colt.
Yeah.
He's a champion. Like it's a funny thing. I always just keep wondering, does the geometry work really well for tall guys? You've thought about that? Like, is that it? Like, because Benny loves it.
Yeah.
Benny's loving it. Like, and it's like and then also too, uh, they're very good with all their hard enduro, off-road stuff like that, and that's a tall person's game. Like,
Yeah.
that's like you go to a hard enduro, man, and there's beaters with tall guys everywhere. That's half the field. So I was just sort of wondering, is it do they need to get some shorter riders and short test riders to figure things out? But that's
Could be. But I mean, it hasn't really worked that well for Ben Watson, who's a bit on the taller side in MXGP. And I thought that Jeremy Van Horbeek, who they had, ride that bike at the start in MXGP, was probably the best rider they still have had on that bike. And he's not short, but he's more on like the normal height side. So there might be a little bit something to the tallness when it comes to like Supercross, because maybe Benny could have like hidden some of the problems that they were having in like the
mm,
whoops and stuff like
yeah.
that by just being taller and being able to kind of ride through that. But I don't know. I think with Colt, it was more of a case of he obviously started the year hurt and then had to come back in with almost no testing and just like, hey, you got to get on the track, you got to race, all this stuff like that. And that's never a successful endeavor for anybody, much less someone trying to learn a bike for the first time. So I think it was like compounded that he wasn't 100% and he definitely wasn't 100% with the bike yet. And those two things together just work out to be a terrible recipe for starting a season halfway through.
It'll be interesting to see if how like aggressive they get with the bike development. I was drawing that comparison to KTM when they were like your early like Dunge's first year, where they got the off-road motor in the moto frame and
Yeah.
all this sort of stuff, and they're just like throwing everything, just trying everything, which then that all like culminated in that I think it was at the 15 and a half model or whatever it was, that first one that come out that was basically like Dunge built bike,
Yeah.
and that
Yep.
was really the first one that was really, really good, which is crazy that that's not even 10 years ago, isn't it? Like when you think about the powerhouse they are now,
Yeah.
um, you think about like there's 10-year-old kids that, there's 15-year-old kids that don't realize that like KTMs were pretty crappy, like for like ever uh,
Yeah.
to now, So it'd be interesting to see if Beta just, if they get real aggressive, like whole new frame again, whole new engine again, just like just going for it, because it's sort of what they're going to need to do, and Triumph's going to be aggressive with development, with
Yeah.
the cast of champions that the whole company like top to bottom, like you go out and get Dave Arnold and Jeff Stanton and RC and like all these guys, brownie now. Like there's certainly no mucking around with Triumph moving forward. Yeah.
Yeah. I got to go to the Triumph launch for the U.S. media out here, and it's impressive what they're putting into it just in terms of a monetary value. Like you said,
Mm.
their launch was, they did not hold up anything about it. They had all their key players there. They made sure everyone could ride the bike and feel it and test it and really get an understanding of what that machine is like. And that's just their 250. We're not even there with their 450 yet. So this is, still a work in progress, and they're still learning. And they have been very, I feel like, forthcoming with, if they have issues, like, come talk to us. Let's talk about what happened. Here's what we are dealing with. Maybe don't say this publicly, but we want people to know that we're working through these processes all the time. And um, we're not trying to hide anything, but we also don't want our brand to be diminished by, oh, your sprocket failed again, something like that. You know what I mean? So,
Mm.
um, but I like I said, I'm impressed with both. I think that both, and honestly, in hindsight, it's weird that Beta entered with their 450 first, and then Triumph entered with their 250 first. They ended up on kind of opposite ends of the spectrum a little bit, but I think it's kind of cool that they didn't have to compete against each other year one,
Yeah, true.
because
Yeah.
now they, like, Beta can just say, well, we got our 450 established, we can really work on that. We don't have to worry about, did we beat Triumph, were we better than Triumph this year? And
Mm.
the same thing with Triumph in the 250 class, not having to worry about Beta, because I can promise you they're both probably like, what the hell is this Ducati going to look like in a couple of years when we're
Yeah.
having to race that thing as well? So it's nice that they could just do their own thing and not have to look across and be like, oh, but are we beating that other new program? Nope, we're just doing our own thing and trying to improve every single week.
Yeah. I think it's cool, man. The new brands, Ducati coming and all that. Like, I think it's cool. I just hope it doesn't push poor old Suzuki out the door. That's
Yeah.
that's my fear. Like, yeah, that's my only fear with it, is that I hope that. Did you see the video of Kenny with a start button? That was
Yeah.
that. I'm sure everyone's seen that. It's like, what's that all about? Like, so. Hopefully that's not just a Kenny special. Hopefully that's a something new for the market, because
Yeah.
I'm telling you, like, a lot of people would buy one just based on that. So
Yeah.
don't have to change anything else. They're good. They just you don't want to. They just don't want to kick their bike. Like I'd buy
uh,
one. I'd buy one, but I do moto and off road
mm,
on the same bike.
yeah.
And stalling your bike on the side of a hill and not having an electric start nowadays, that just sucks, man. Like, that's the worst. So
Hmm. Yep.
that's it's going to a moto track. I don't care about kicking it, whatever. Like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And I'm not even racing. If I stall it and I got to kick it, whatever, because I'm up the back anyway. It doesn't really matter. I ain't winning anything anyway. So, but it's more the off road stuff. When you're riding hills and that off road,
Hmm.
and you're stuck in or you're stuck in a precarious spot. Riding some technical off road and that sort of thing, and then you got to reach down and kick it. And,
Yeah.
that's when you love that. That's when you love that electric start. Yeah,
Oh
cool,
yeah.
man. Cool. Righto. Time for an ad read. Guts Racing. Greg's Ultra Trick Seats. Gutsracing.com. That's a really easy website to remember. Gutsracing.com. How good did those blue Guts seat covers look on those throwback Husky models? That was fantastic. The Husky models that had the blue and yellow Swedish colors on them. Fantastic. Swedish blue. There you go. Kaiser Wolf is just dominating over there in Europe. Lucas Kuhlnen real close. Both of those on their factory Husqvarnas. If you want to buy a Rockstar Edition Husqvarna yourself, it comes off the showroom floor with a Guts seat cover. That's a premium bike from the manufacturer coming off the showroom floor with a Guts seat cover. Fantastic. You can be like Mookie. You can be like Phil Nicoletti. You can be like Jed Beaton here in Australia. You can be like Ken Roxon, all running Guts seat covers. You can obviously get seat covers. You can also get complete seats You can get custom seats with the RJ wide wing with the seat bump. You can get the ultralight seat foam. You can even get Velcro fitment seats if you don't want to tackle the job with the staple gun. Speaking of fitment, get your seat cover. You can scan a QR code that comes with it that will take you to a video where you will see the man himself, Andy Gregg. They're showing you how to install that seat cover. Takes you straight to that video. How cool is that? That you don't get that sort of service with too many companies, that's for sure. As privateer hero Scott Meshy says, they are a butt gripper and they will make you a ripper. Get around it. Gutsracing.com. That's a really easy website to remember. Gutsracing.com. Specbolt.com. That's another really easy website to remember. Specbolt.com. Right? They put the fast in fasteners. Right? You will bolt straight to the front. That's yeah, there's a couple of dad jokes for you. Hey, make my daughter cringe. If you're into restorations, like I am, like Robbie Green is, you can get restoration kits with such detail. So, for instance, I just got a kit for a vintage CR and a vintage YZ that I'm building. The detail you'll get even down to a labeled shift lever bolt. You'll get a little packet of water pump housing bolts. Like, we're not just talking like here's your engine bolts in a bag. You get individual labels. It's amazing. Even the chassis parts, those little screws for your brake master cylinder cap. New ones of those, in a little bag. Amazing detail. You can get zinc plated. So if you're building bikes, you're going to race, and you don't need to be too flashy. You can get your zinc plated stuff. You can get the nickel plated, the nickel works stuff. If you're building those garage queens and you want things to be like super pretty, you can get maintenance kits for your modern bikes. Of course, you can even get some. You can get some things for. You can get ATV kits, exhaust springs, hats, t-shirts, you name it. Anything to do with bolts and fasteners. Everybody needs in your van, in your ute, in your truck, a bolt kit to take to the races. And one to have on the shelf in your shed, in your shop. You're always going to need that sort of stuff. Specbolt.com. Really easy website to remember. Really easy. Specbolt.com. Righto. Let's get back and see what Kellen Brauer's got to say. Dude, something that interesting that I've been thinking about, at least I think it's interesting, is right through sort of the history of moto, there's been transitions between the best riders being super aggressive, and then a guy would take over who was super smooth, and then a guy would take over who was super aggressive. And I've just sort of written it down, a loose thing here, so listeners don't freak out if I've missed someone, but loosely, like from my first interest, like Bob Hanna was like ragdoll, wide open, feet off the pegs, loose as you could get.
Yep.
David Bailey comes along, who was jet 30 years ago, just unbelievably smooth and perfect. And then you got like RJ comes along, who he wasn't flapping around like Bob Hanna, but he was aggressive bulldog. RJ was very, I guess for the younger listeners, RJ was like an Eli of the 80s as far as his riding style.
Yep.
Super strong, that sort of thing. Then Bale comes over, JMB, who's just like this magician. Then you got like Bradshaw, who's just a wild man as well, wide open. Then Jeremy comes in, totally changes how people ride with his BMX stuff and his keep it low and smoothness. And then you get into like RC, another bulldog comes along, that sort of thing. Stu, man, you can't compare him to anyone. Stu's style was like it's like you can't compare that. I don't know which he was sort of. Stu was kind of both. It's like
the extremes of both too.
The extremes of both in one person. Like,
yep.
But then European influence. Evans was the European influence that came in. With that unbelievably smooth, and that's when also coincided with Europe becoming a powerhouse again, because the Americans were kicking their ass for like 15 years until Stefan come along, and then it was like,
Yep.
And that sort of thing. And then since then, we've probably sort of had, like the Ryans, we had one of each. And then Eli and Kenny, we had one of each. Kenny's
Mm-hmm.
beautiful skills, and then Eli's the bulldog and that sort of thing. And then to Jet with this unbelievably smooth, just how the hell did he do that stuff? And it gets me thinking, man, is Deegs, then you got Deegs, like it seems perfect. Look, Deegs to be the one to come up and challenge him with the bulldog style. Yeah. What's your
Yeah.
thoughts on all that? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right that like we go through this ebb and flow of kind of what works, like what is the preferred way to get around a racetrack fast. I think really what we're starting to see though is that is going to be revolutionized by just nonstop training compound kids in the US, and that's probably why Jet looks like so different compared to everything again, is because he's not a training compound kid, upbringing in Australia, goes to Europe, learns how to ride in Europe, then actually brings all those skill sets here, which is I think why you're starting to see a little bit more of teams being interested in Euro riders, and probably why we'll see Ida Wolf and the Koonins and all them come over soon, because they like to see, okay, those guys have figured something out, and Jet obviously learned a lot of that stuff over there. So what can we take over here and benefit from seeing all that? Because like PC Cowie, when they were just pulling Porcel and all these other guys off the shelf basically back then, I feel like it made their American riders better because they could be like, okay, here's how smooth Porcel is, and here's how wild, let's say Blake Baggett is, and let's find the middle ground of that. But that's what these training facilities are doing over here. They're taking the best of both sides, and they're just taking all their guys to train and do the exact same things over and over again. And Deegan is like the exponential of that. He's like training facilities on steroids, which is like, okay, we're gonna do this as hard and as fast as we possibly can for 30 minutes straight. And Colleen or whoever else is teaching them how to do it is, teaching them a certain way, but how fast can you do that? Well, Hayden Deegan is how fast you can do that. So I think that, we're going to see kind of it stabilize with US talent in the next like decade, where you're seeing a very similar brand of racing from a US side. Like Sexton's maybe the only outlier, but even now since Jet's come around, people are like, oh,
Yeah.
Sexton's a little bit more of a bulldog again.
Sexton was perfect until
Yeah.
Jet comes along, and then he's suddenly Sexton's the bulldog. It's crazy, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we'll see, I'm kind of interested to see how people perceive DeWolf and the Koonins and all that stuff when they come here. But I think that there's probably someone that's 12, 13 years old right now that's racing over there that, they'll turn 16, 17, come over here, and it'll be like, oh, yeah, okay, so that's what they're learning over there. That's the smooth skill sets that they have. And that'll be the next best thing, if you will, of what people are being taught and how they can attack a racetrack. I think it's going to constantly do that. But instead of it being kind of, Rick Johnson versus Bale and then versus McGrath and this whole ebb and flow, it's just going to be US versus, the Europe / whatever other world talent comes in to compete against these guys.
Yeah, interesting, man. Interesting. Yeah, the old riding school things, definitely think. What got me thinking about this whole topic thread, thoughts was, so a good friend of mine, he was right into he had like a race team, and he was sponsoring a lot of people and that sort of thing here in Australia, and he sort of stopped doing it for, I don't know, probably for like 7-8 years.
Mm-hmm.
And just a local kid who's going well, he has started supporting him. So he went to his first race to help out this kid and to see how he was going. And this young fellow won the state title in his class and all that sort of thing, which is all good. But anyway, he goes along and he comes back to me and he goes, I can't believe how different all the kids are riding just since I've been going to the races. He goes, there's just like a whole the pits are full of Jet Lawrence wannabes. Like every kid is riding different. They're all been watching Jet and they're all trying to ride like Jet, and some of them are succeeding. Like he couldn't believe the different riding style just in that 6-7 years. It might have even been less, since he was regularly going to the races. So that and it got me thinking, like, like these kids, they just got access to the best riders in the world, slow motion videos in the palm of their hand all
Yeah.
day. Like, it's crazy. So that's what got me thinking about that sort of thing. And I'm sure there'll be kids, you know, that are just watching tape of Deegs constantly, and they'll be trying to ride like him. Obviously all the Aussie kids are wanting to be like Jet, so you might get a
Yeah.
generation of Aussie kids that are like super smooth sort of riders. So
Well, it's funny because I used to kind of believe that theory of like with the ebbs and flows of what works and what doesn't, came with who they idolize perhaps a little bit as well from a young age and maybe followed that riding style. But Deegs broke the mold again because his favorite rider growing up was Ryan Dungey, and he
yeah,
doesn't look anything like Ryan Dungey on the
nothing
track.
like
So I
him.
don't understand how that connection ever happened.
You would expect Deegs to say his favorite was RV, you know.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a funny thing, that, isn't it? And and I was talking to so I went trail riding with my daughter there a couple of weeks ago, and I was just teaching her stuff, and I was telling her about how long when we're driving home, telling her about how long it took me to learn things because I couldn't watch anything.
Mhm.
Like my style and how I rode, and it was so bad for so long, man, because like I just didn't know. I was only ever looking at still pictures of, they'll like
Yeah.
couldn't see videos of anything like that. Yeah, I could see how they were riding 70s models bikes on any Sunday and stuff like that. And I could see them riding on winners take all, like, but there, as far as the current riders and all that, like, and then it wasn't, the first videos we ever got where we could watch anything was like crusties and stuff, and you certainly not,
Mhm.
I certainly wasn't brave enough to imitate anything they were doing. And I said, nowadays you can watch things, and you can pick up on things really quick, and so it's a it's just huge, huge the advantage they got nowadays to learn so quick
Yeah.
the videos, man. Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, cool, man. Cool. Hey, another question, man. Um, does the sport need to be bigger? It's one thing that I think about a lot. Does the sport need to be bigger? And there's pros and cons for it, and I also find interesting the I don't know the answer, but also find interesting the different perspectives. So really big media players, you like your Steves and your Gypsy and that sort of thing. Like they they often talk about things that would make the sport bigger and that. But of course, they've got there's a big financial gain to them. Feld and Davey and that, obviously, if the sport gets bigger, they want it to get bigger because it's a big financial gain for them.
Yeah.
Whereas, a guy like little old me, I sort of think how much I love the fact that Josh Greco can drive around in his secondhand van with the roof leaking and and you know
Yeah.
ride ride a supercross with the best in the world and that sort of thing. I love the privateer side of it and that sort of thing. And I often fear that if it got bigger, that we'd lose these guys. So yeah, what's your take? Does it need to get bigger?
I think you could look at it two different ways. On one hand, the grassroots side of it, there's so many guys like you and me grew up racing, riding, loving it, and just wanted to be anywhere associated with it, basically. That if you have that, you'd start to get a little bit jaded with the growth of more people from an outside presence coming in
Mm,
that would maybe turn the sport in a direction none of us really want it to. But what are we supposed to do about it? If they're trying to grow the sport, they're going to have to
yeah.
do something a different way. So I think that that's a problem, is that if it does change and get bigger, us grassroots fans probably will hate it for a lot of different reasons, whether it's the marketing aspect of it, of how they promote the sport, or whether it's the format changes that they do to make the sport completely different. But I think that there's ways to continue growing as they are, just, subtle changes here and there to continue a little bit of upward growth so that we grow naturally. Because I think if you just have like overnight success,
Mm.
there's going to be a collapse on the other side of that at some point.
Always, yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. So like if you just take these like good staircase approaches to getting a little bit better here and there, that's what ultimately is going to be the most successful model for this sport because it'll keep us grassroots fans interested in it that you don't change that much over time, but you are making these little subtle changes behind the scenes that is actually making the sport better. And I think, SMX is a little bit of an evolution of that where you know, I think most core fans are probably like more races and it's this weird hybrid thing and does it really matter? It's three race championship and all that stuff like that. But
Yeah.
then you look at the, behind the scenes of it and realize that like TV deals happened that wouldn't have happened, more money's on the table that wouldn't have been there. You got more eyeballs on the sport because of that. The stadium at ZMAX was more people in it this year than there was last. So there's even sustained growth within a market here in Charlotte, for example. So like I think you're seeing like just subtle steps of improvement that they're trying to find. And I think if they can do that, we'll get to a point where this sport can be what I would say is like the biggest it should be. Because I don't think we're ever going to compete against stick and ball sports. We'll probably never compete against F1, MotoGP, these crazy global sports, but we can be the most popular motorsport in America,
Mm,
maybe if we
mm.
do the right things. And that goes for growing MXGP and being the most popular off-road sport and stuff like that. So I like with the steps that they're taking that they're not alienating fans with anything that they're doing yet. But I do think that if you're going to see more growth, we're going to start seeing these continued patterns of little changes that you know if it happens over a decade, it maybe not isn't going to lose us. But if it happened overnight, we would all be like, no, we don't want this.
Yeah.
This sucks.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a very, very good, very measured response there, man. You're very, yeah. I'm impressed, man. Because like, I'm honestly, I'm still like, I'm still a little bit. I'm still, yelling off the front porch a little bit about about SMX and any sort of change and that sort of thing.
Yeah,
But, like last year, I was definitely yelling at the kids to get off my lawn about it. The name's stupid. The hybrid track's stupid. These guys don't need another race. Or like I was
yeah,
down on it. But this year, I'm like, I was pretty cool with it. And after the first race, I'm very cool. I'm like, this is awesome. I can't wait for next week. Like, I'm upbeat. But
yeah.
I do get still a little bit like, I don't want to be anything like Formula One. I don't want to be anything like that. I love the grassroots. And what I really like that you said was about that progressive, slow approach to building the sport, because that will stick. Anything that has overnight success bursts. That's just the way of life. So that the big changes is no good for us old fans, but it's not good for sustained success in any sort of business anyway. So
Yeah,
um,
exactly. And
yeah,
I think like if I was just suddenly put in charge, like the two things I would see the easiest growth path for the sport in is lowering ticket prices because they're starting to get more record numbers of stadiums again. But I want to get back to the days when in the 80s they're selling out almost every stadium they went to, and it was an unreal environment to be a part of. Even if you're a casual fan, you're like, these people are losing their minds over this sport. I think we'll create a better visual representation of this sport on a global scale because it sucks if you're tuning into the SMX playoffs and you see empty seats. If you're like a NASCAR fan, you're like, what, this doesn't make any sense. So lower ticket prices to a sustainable level. Don't go way lower, but it shouldn't cost $500 for a family of four to go to these things. It really shouldn't. I would see that as a benefit. And then I wish that they would take a different approach with how they present the sport across like free platforms because yes, it streams on Peacock, it streams on these networks that we can, all see by paying for. But if you go to their YouTube page, it's just sponsored segments and like press conferences. It's not like this intense battle for 3 minutes of a clip that's something, like it could get a million views if you just showed Hayden Deegan's march through the field, for example, and just tie
mm,
clips together and stuff like that, which is the approach that F1 took. And now Dorna with MotoGP is starting to do that as well to try to attract newer fans that are like, what is this even about? Holy crap, this 3 minute clip of this kid going through 10 guys in 10 minutes is ridiculous. I want to, check out what else they got going on. So I would change those two quick things as like they're subtle. You maybe wouldn't even notice them at first, but over time, the, little growth from it would
yeah.
actually be quite a big benefit.
Yeah. Do you think that like I think the growth for the sport and fans, ticket prices, I think the whole thing that it all starts with getting kids on bikes, getting kids
It does,
riding.
yeah.
That's the start of the whole thing. Like you get that kid, like my favorite question I ask on all the shows, when I have someone on for the first time is about when the bug bites. When did you fall in love with this shit? Because once a kid falls in love, they're a fan for life. Once a bug bites you, man, you're a fan for life. Like you are locked in. And the more kids who get the chance to maybe have that bug bite them, that's your fans for life. That's your
Yeah.
that's your long
I
term
mean,
success.
that's why the ticket price thing maybe hits a little close to home for me because I went to my first Supercross when I was 4. I was almost 5, and I remember almost every detail about that night like it was yesterday, and it was a terrible night. Like, I get migraines. I had a migraine the whole night. I threw up in the trash can, like, 3 times. My favorite rider at the time, Doug Henry, crashed in the lead on the last lap. Like, all the things that you would think would be a terrible experience, and I left, like you said, bitten by it, and I just wish that with ticket prices, it doesn't make it so that a family of 4, like I said, just financially it makes no sense for them to go. Like instead just say, "Oh, we'll just watch it on TV," but then you just don't get the feel, you don't get that vibe of what is this really about? What's this sport like? And I know it costs money to put the sport on, but I think if you lowered the ticket prices a little bit and filled up the grandstands, not only would it allow some of those families that maybe couldn't come to actually fill the grandstands, but then again, visually you'd be like, holy smokes, man, the environment at these races is incredible. Like I want to go. I want to spend money to go to these races.
Mm. It's interesting that, just as you're talking about that, you got me thinking. I've been doing some amateur shows before Loretta's. I've got to get some more going again. Where I've just getting some amateurs to come on and just talk about their stuff. And there was a few kids that actually said that their parents weren't moto people,
Yep.
but that they saw Supercross on the TV, or they somehow went to a Supercross because of like an uncle or their dad's mate or whatever, and they just went like, I want to do this. So that's there. Yeah, it all comes back to the kids. I'm pretty sure it was Jadon Cooper was one of the
Okay, yeah.
ones who said that.
Yep.
Where I think his dad. That's right. His dad drag raced street bikes.
Yep.
So there was a motorbike connection, but yeah, he saw or went or something to a supercross, and he said to his dad, like, "That's what I want to do." So it's a cool thing, and I just love that, man. I love it when a kid's like gets hooked on it. It warms my heart, that sort of thing, man. It's fantastic,
Yeah.
absolutely, man. Hey, don't want to keep you too long, man. Just quick thoughts on MXGP, man. Like, yeah, who have you got? Who have you got? Who's going to
I've
get it
been
done?
saying I've been saying Geyser all year, so I'm riding the Geyser train all the way home. But I don't know, man. Prado might just sneak up and take this thing at the end. I think we're at the point now where Hurlings is too far down points wise
Mm,
to bring it back. But this is arguably going to go down as one of the better seasons ever. Just the fact that all these guys kept exchanging wins the way
mm,
that they did. And, they're going to lose Prado next year to the USA. Who knows what Hurlings versus Geyser looks like for a couple more years beyond this and how long both of them have careers for. And it seems like it goes 3 or 4 years where at least one of them is hurt anyway. So honestly, I'm just stoked that they made it all the way basically to the end of the season. Like I don't want to jinx it because we still got a few to go, but basically to the end of the season with limited injuries, limited crashes, and they've actually straight up raced each other several times this year. Like it's been a true joy as a fan myself of the series to watch them actually have battles and it actually kind of equal out too and not one guy just walk away with it.
mm. Cool, yeah, man. I'm definitely not regretting my decision to spend that. I don't know however much it was, probably $300 or something. They usually are season passes on things for us to watch things, and yeah, it's good. But I've mostly enjoyed the 250 class though, even though
Yeah.
the 450's been good. That too, those two boys on them Husqvarnas, man, they are just wicked to watch. Like I love it. I'm a DeWolf fan. I just like that kid. His riding, his personality off the bike, like he's like He's sort of got this cheeky look about him, man. Like this cheeky, confident look about him. Like I just really like that kid. But a lot of the kids in the 250 class are very likable too. Some really good personalities there. Like Adamo, man. Everts. There's a lot of really good personalities. The Coonan boys, they're pretty quiet, man. Like Lucas is going to need to get those boys out of their shell when they come over here.
It's a Belgian thing, dude. I swear.
Is
Like
it?
even Jago Geerts and I mean Stefan Everts over the years wasn't very necessarily personable or outgoing either. Liam is completely different. Liam's awesome,
Yeah,
but
yeah, he
it's
is.
I
Yeah.
don't know. It's something about the Belgian upbringing that they just stay very reserved.
Very reserved, yeah, yeah. Because like I was saying to someone, like Lucas ain't getting those boys to take a donut on the podium, man. Like that's not happening. It's like he's going to be like Sasha. Sasha, you're going to be struggling to get him to smile. Like
Mhm.
so they're going to. He's definitely got Myrtle's definitely got his work cut out to market those guys outside of their fantastic riding. So
Yeah.
but yeah, that's it. So I'm glad about DeWolf, man. It looks like he's as long as nothing goes really wrong, he should be able to get that one. But I mean, Lucas is awesome as well. And I'm a bit of a Prado fan, man. So and that literally comes from his time in the US, and I think there, there's probably I think he probably gained a lot of fans from his time doing Supercross. It,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I Prado was awesome being over here and dealing
mm,
with him in a media standpoint. Like I'd spoken to him at Nations before, but having him here every week and he for as big of a name as he is, and I mean, like he's so big over there. Obviously, Spain, the Spanish fans are crazy for him. Like you would not assume that at all. Like he's got no ego about him when it comes to like, oh yeah, interviews, no problem. This guy signed this, whatever, no big deal. Like he's very laid back and reserved like that, and I think that'll suit him well here for sure because he's gonna, I feel like, be pushed in front of people a lot more often than he was or is in MXGP.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but if I had to tip, I'd say Tim's got it, but I kind of want Prado to get it. But yeah,
Yeah,
I'd like it's just I'm a sucker for the story, man. Like I love to write stories. I'm always a sucker for the story, and the story of him going back to back and then coming to America. It's really cool. Like
yeah.
it's a perfect if you're writing the script. So that's
Well,
sort
on the flip side,
of
I mean, with the Tim story, I just like that if he does win this, and granted, Hurlings will admit that he wasn't 100% ready for the season and all that stuff like that. But if Hurlings wins this, or Geyser wins this, I feel like he can finally say, like, I did it. Like everyone was on the track. You can't say
yeah.
I won because this guy got hurt or whatever. Like I'm a 5-time world champion and I beat all the best guys when they were at their best. So
Mm.
yeah.
But they're all likable guys too. Like I used to. Jeffrey seems pretty cool. Like I used to not being able to sort of watch him. There was a real narrative around that he was like a bit of a punk, and so
Hmm.
I sort of automatically didn't like him that much just because of what I heard. But he seems pretty cool, man. I mean, he's allowed to be cocky and confident. Like when you're that good, you're allowed to
Yeah.
be. And Tim sort of same like Prado just seems like a super nice guy. So.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's cool, man. It's cool. All right, dude. Hey, you might remember there's a couple of things I do to finish the show, man. And the first one is about giving me your best Aussie accent. And I've got to let you know, you are from the first time you did it, you are by far the best at it. So even when
Okay.
people ask on the show who's been the best, I say Kellen is the best. So
Oh, wow.
so
Well,
you
now
are
I
the
feel like
best.
I have to uphold it again.
You do, man. So I think last time you gave us a bit of Chad Reed. So, but whatever
Oh,
you
okay.
want, man, give us
I
a
feel like I need a phrase to say though. Like
yeah.
I'm not very
Um,
good with like the vernacular side of it. So,
um, oh, look, let's just go with it. We'll just go with one of the classics, man, and just throw a shrimp on the barbie.
okay. So you throw a shrimp on the barbie?
Oh, you weren't quite as good that time, man.
No?
No,
Okay.
no, no, that you weren't quite as good. You had you got a little bit of a British twang into it that time. So
Okay.
give us a bit of chat. Just give us a bit of Chad Reed.
It's a bit of Chad Reed. Uh, oh, mate, my start was pretty good tonight, but these boys just hung tight to me. It was a little bit rough out there through the first corners, and got off through the whoops pretty good, but James was a little bit better than me tonight, so just hung on for second. Thanks to my Dunlop tires for hooking up off the gate. I don't know, like I'm struggling at this point to
No,
pull it all
that
together,
was
but
good, man. Yeah, that's the key, man. That might be the key when you're doing Chad. That might be the key. Yeah, that was pretty good, man. Yeah,
we listen to Chad a lot over here through the years, so
yeah.
picked up
No,
on him, I guess.
I like it, man. I like it. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right, man. And you might remember I do a bit of Kenny Rogers for the outtake, man. I'm still doing that. I just it's stuck, man. So I always say if you know the words, then you're more than welcome to join in. So I handed him my bottle, and he drank down my last swallow. Then he bummed a cigarette and asked me for a light, and the night got deathly quiet, and his face lost all expression. Said, if you're gonna play the game, boy, you gotta learn to play it right. You got to know when to hold 'em, know when to fold 'em, know when to walk away, know when to run. You never count your money. When you're sitting at the table, there'll be time enough for counting when the dealing's done. Kellen Brauer, thank you very much for joining us
Yeah,
again
thank
on the
you.
outside gate.
Well done.
It's been
Very
fun,
good
man.
voice.
No, not that good, man. But yeah, but I like doing it, and I've got no shame, and I like singing, so it's just an excuse. But anyway, thank you, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your evening, and yeah, we'll talk again at some stage, man. Maybe even in person. I reckon it might be the next time I
Absolutely.
talk to you. Cheers, man. All right,
Yep, thanks, man. Thank you.
thanks, man. Bye.
Bye.